Baltimore, Maryland with one of my investor clients. He is currently looking for a multifamily property to invest in. And Baltimore is probably one of the best places for multifamily investing, especially here in the DMV. First off, it's one of the only places that have multifamily properties besides DC. DC has them, but they're a lot more expensive, like a lot more expensive. The barrier of entry when it comes to multifamily investing between DC and Baltimore is like night and day. And when it comes to investing in multifamily, see, I work with a lot of investors, and some investors just strictly prefer single family, and some strictly multifamily, and some just both. It doesn't even matter as long as the deal makes sense. But this particular client, he's looking for a multifamily property. And multifamily, for those who don't know, which you should know, so it's 2 units or more. It's considered multifamily, but it's still 2 types of multifamily. You have residential multifamily, then you have commercial. Residential is any property between 2 and 4 units, and 5+ units is commercial. Now with residential, the financing terms are a little bit better. You're able to get a multifamily property with low down payments if you have a down payment, because if you get it with a VA loan, you can get a property with 0% down. FHA, you can get 3.5%. Conventional, you can get 3%, long as you buy it as a primary residence. So you pretty much be house hacking the property. You can buy it, live in one of the units, and just rent out the rest of the property. With commercial, so anything 5 units plus, they're usually going to want at least 20% down because it's looked at as an investment property. Even though residential 2 to 4 units is still an investment because you're going to be renting units out, commercial is just strictly investment. So even if you bought it as your primary residence, if it's 5 units plus, they're going to want 20%. So that's the biggest difference when it comes to the financing terms. Another difference is when it comes to the actual value of the properties. So residential multifamily, to get how much the property is worth, they can run comps like they do with single family properties. So anywhere within like a mile or 2 miles of that property, they could look at similar properties, see how much those sold for, and that's how they can get the value of your property. So if it's 2 to 4 units, they can do that approach, or they can do the income approach, how much money that property is generating, and they can determine the value that way. But with 5+ units of commercial, it's strictly the income approach. They're not going to be using the comps approach. If I have a 20 unit building, like how often are they going to find another 20 unit building within a few miles that just sold? So it would be a lot harder to run comps on a commercial building. So they just strictly use the income approach. So that's another difference when it comes to residential and commercial. And another difference is when it comes to actually adding value to the property. It's kind of similar, but it's still a difference. So with residential, 2 to 4 units, it's similar to single family. To force it to appreciate, you can buy it as distressed or fixer-upper. Fix the property up, you forced it to appreciate. So you bought it down here, now it's worth up here. With commercial, you can do that same approach, but you then have to raise rent. So since it's strictly off of the income approach, you'd have to fix the property up, raise the tenants' rents, and then the value of the property has increased. Because again, they appraise the property based on the income that the property generates. But like I said, Baltimore is one of the best places for multifamily investing. But my advice, if you are trying to invest in multifamily properties in Baltimore, for one, pay attention to the neighborhood that you want to invest in. That's a big one. That's probably the number one factor to pay attention to. When it comes to Baltimore, and some people don't even realize this, it's 2 parts of Baltimore. You have Baltimore City and you have Baltimore County. Like say if you were going to do Section 8 investing, those are ran by 2 separate housing authorities. Both of them have multifamily properties, but it's a lot more in Baltimore City. And when you're dealing with Baltimore City, you gotta know the neighborhoods, because you can be on one street and it's a good street, a good neighborhood, and then the very next street is not a good neighborhood. You gotta kind of know how it works when you're gonna be investing in Baltimore City. It's not a place you want to just blindly invest. If you're an out-of-state investor, you definitely would want someone who knows Baltimore a little bit. Like if you get an agent, you want someone to kind of guide you when it comes to investing in Baltimore. That would be my number one advice. Pay attention to the neighborhood. And as we know, like with Section 8, the small area fair market rents are broken down by zip code. When it comes to Baltimore, it's hard to just strictly go off the zip code because so many neighborhoods in one zip code. A good neighborhood might be a top paying zip code, and then a few neighborhoods over in that same zip code might not be so good. So you have to do your research on the neighborhoods. All right, number 2, when it comes to investing in Baltimore, try to be open to more than just one strategy. Don't say, okay, I just strictly want to buy this as a Section 8 rental, or I just want this strictly as to get a private rental tenant, or I want this to be an Airbnb. Like have more than one, be open. Try to be open-minded to more than one strategy. That also goes back to the neighborhood. Baltimore is a great place. It has plenty of neighborhoods where you have opportunities where multiple investment strategies will work. It can be either a Section 8 rental, private rental tenants, Airbnb, Airbnb, a midterm rental. You can rent it out to students. Like, it's places where all those strategies will make sense. So when it comes to looking for a property, try to find somewhere where multiple strategies will work. Don't just try to find somewhere where I want this place strictly for Section 8 rentals. That's what it's going to be. It's kind of like you're going to limit yourself to, okay, yeah, I got this as a Section 8 rental, bought it in the worst part of town, and it's just going to attract those voucher holders that you're probably not even going to want. So it's important to try to invest in places where multiple strategies will work. And when you're dealing with the housing authority, they have opportunity zones, and those are usually the best neighborhoods to invest in, and they'll pay you higher in those neighborhoods. So I try to focus on those areas. And in Baltimore, if you go on the Baltimore City's Housing Authority website, they'll have a map and they'll show where the opportunity zones are. So if you are investing in Baltimore, that's a good place to start, because those usually are areas where you can have multiple investment strategies. All right, number 3, and this one is more so geared to Section 8, but it can also be helpful if you're not looking for a Section 8 rental, if you're just trying to find an investment property. If you go on the Housing Authority's website, Baltimore City Housing Authority, I don't believe they have a payment standards on the Housing Authority's website. Most housing authorities usually have a payment standard, so you can see how much they're going to pay for units and zip codes. But the city of Baltimore, they don't have a payment standards. However, they do have a rental tool, estimator tool. You put the property address, you put the bedrooms, and then you put the voucher holder, like how many bedrooms the voucher holder qualifies for. Then it'll tell you, it'll give you a range of how much you should charge for rent. It'll give you like a low amount and a high amount. And anywhere in that range, that's how much you can expect to get for rent. And it'll also tell you if the property is in an opportunity zone. So this tool is really helpful. Actually, one of my investor clients sent it to me who owns properties in Baltimore. And that's why it's important as an investor to politic or try to network with other investors. You want to meet other investors in the area where you're investing, because they can help you out. They have resources that they can help you with. But yeah, so I'm going to link that rental tool, the estimator. I'm going to link it in the description, but it's on the Housing Authority's website of Baltimore City. You can find it on there, but I'm gonna have the link also. But that's extremely helpful. If you are interested in investing in Baltimore, just put the address, even if it's not Section 8, put your address in there, see about how much you can get for rent, and kind of use that to run your numbers and see if the deal makes sense. And number 4, my last bit of advice. You don't have to do this, but I invest in single family properties and I look for the opportunity to add value. Whether I'm creating bedrooms, turning the garage into a bedroom, putting a room in the basement, I look for those opportunities. So when it comes to multifamily, you can look for those same opportunities, but it doesn't even have to be bedrooms. It can be opportunities to add additional units. I know sometimes you might find if you have a duplex or triplex and the property has a basement and no one's in the basement, you can probably add a unit down in that basement. Now, the problem with some of these older homes, the basements are like so low you can't even qualify it as a living space. But I know investors, they'll go in there, dig out the basement. Instead of raising the ceiling, they'll dig out the basement, so lower the floor. That way it meets the minimum requirements of the ceiling height in the basement, and they'll add rooms down there, so you'd be able to add a unit down there. Now, if you do the approach of adding value to the property, you will need some money, so just keep that in mind. It might not work for everybody because it does cost to take on a project like that. But even if you don't do it right away, the ability to add value to the property later on, just imagine if you add an additional 1 or 2 bedroom unit, and now you're getting like an extra, let's say $1,500 a month. So now the value of that property has risen significantly. But that's what I try to tell clients. Try to find places where you would be able to add value to it. Now, some places you might not be able to, and that's okay too. If it cash flows enough, then hey, it might make sense for you. But that's what I try to do. I try to find places that gives me the ability to add value and bring in extra income at the same time, increasing the value of the property. So that was just some advice I have for investors looking to invest in Baltimore, specifically in multifamily properties in Baltimore. It's a ton of multifamily properties in Baltimore. As long as you have somewhat of a strategy and have an agent that's kind of familiar with the process and know what to look for, then you should be good. At one point, I was like done with going to Baltimore because it's like an hour and a half from me. But I'm back to helping clients out in Baltimore. Now I have it set up where instead of like, say if a client see a property and I go see it on Monday, and then he see another one on Wednesday. He want to go see it, then go see it on Wednesday, and then go. I don't do that. I just go once a week. Once a week, I'm going to Baltimore. If you find properties throughout the week, all right, then this one day a week, we'll go visit all of them. So that's how I got it set up now, so I don't have to keep going back and forth and back and forth. And that seems to be working well. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. And like always, look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.